ones, we did it. We got to the end of 2025, and what a year it has been, especially in films, which is what I'll be talking about today. I will be going through my top 5 movies that I watched this year, and I hope you will enjoy this. I'll also have some honorable mentions for you as well. And yeah, without further ado, we're just going to dive right into it. I want to start off with my number 5. Now, my number 5 is for a movie I did not expect to actually enjoy. Not only that, but also just the amount of enjoyment that I was going to get out of it from watching this movie. And I watched it back at the start of the year in January. That is The Holdovers. Yes, my number 5 is The Holdovers. Now, before I keep going, the movies that I'm going to be mentioning, they're not all going to have been released in 2025. These are just my movies that I had watched this year, even though a lot of these came out in previous years. That's just how it's going to be for me, because that is my year of movie watching. I don't really go to the cinemas as often as I used to. So a lot of the times I'm waiting for these films to come to a streaming service, or if I can't find it that way, then I buy them physically. And so here we go. The Holdovers is my number 5. I really had fun with this one. Pretty much the premise of this movie is it's set in the 1970s. A curmudgeonly history teacher at a New England boarding school remains on campus during Christmas break to supervise held over students and ends up forming an unlikely bond with one of them. So this movie was just pure joy. It also had a lot of drama to it. So it is supposed to be a comedy. It's based around Christmas time as well. So it is a holiday movie. But it's mostly a dramedy. Let's put it that way. So these students, it's a boarding school, and they, during the Christmas break for a couple of weeks, they go back to their families usually. But then there are times where students aren't able to return to their families for various reasons. And so they end up staying at the boarding school over that Christmas break. Now, unfortunately, for one of the teachers by the name of Paul Hunnam, they also have to stick around and look after them, essentially babysit these students. Now, these students aren't necessarily young, under 12 kids. They're in their teens. And so they kind of don't like their teacher. So these students are not big fans of their professor. And especially the ones who have to stick around and can't go back home. The one thing that will also happen, and this happens very early on in the film as well, is that all but one student finally end up actually going back to their family, or one of them gets a helicopter brought to the school, and so they get to fly away, and then majority of the other students that have other families close by, they're just like, you know what, we'll come along and we'll go with you, and then from there we'll go our separate ways, kind of a situation. That's one that ended up happening. But one particular student was unable to return home, and that is Angus Tully, who was played by Dominic Sessa. Man, this kid just had so much, I wouldn't say a lot of hate, but he was not a big fan of, just like every other student, he wasn't a big fan of his professor. But the fact that he couldn't go home because his mother was too busy with her new partner, just was unable to see her son. And so Angus had to stay at the boarding school, and the professor was not really happy about it. He's been trying to contact the mother and be like, hey, your son would prefer to go home. It's not fair for him to stay here. And especially because Paul just doesn't want to have to babysit anyone over the Christmas break, And I, kind of don't blame him, but also, he's one of those type of people who is just not a big fan of kids, I suppose. But why would you not be a fan of kids if you're going to be a teacher, But I think for him, it's more the passion of teaching those students history, and that's what he's all about. But it's a really fascinating film. It's funny. It also had some really sort of sad moments as well. I will say they had a caretaker or that sort of lives at the boarding school as well, that works at the boarding school, by the name of Mary Lamb, who was played by Davine Joy Randolph, and she is amazing. She's such a great performer. I love her work. And she does a great job in the role of Mary Lamb. And she's kind of like the glue that's holding this unlikely duo together. The professor and this student, trying to keep them from killing each other, essentially. But I just really enjoyed watching through The Holdovers. The writing in this film is really good. The cinematography is excellent, I will say. I really enjoyed the many different shots and angles that we got throughout this film, and especially considering that it's a period piece as well. So you do get those kind of moments where you're looking at really, really big rooms and you kind of feel small in them sometimes. But yeah, The Holdovers was a really good movie. I would definitely recommend everybody check that out if you can. Available, I believe, on Paramount Plus, Prime Video if you want to rent it. But yeah, The Holdovers is actually a really good one. So I would definitely recommend that. My number 4 film here is for a Marvel film, and yes, I know a lot of you aren't really a huge fan of the Marvel movies. I'm still pretty keen on it. I'm still enjoying the MCU for what it is. I know in the last few years it's kind of dropped off in terms of, I wouldn't say quality, more so the stories being told haven't really been the greatest. And, we have those specific moments in the movie where it's not looking so good in terms of like the special effects or the CGI. And yeah, it is a bit unfortunate sometimes, and especially when the performances, are reliant on the writing. But Thunderbolts was a big surprise for me, more specifically. I was, like every other Marvel movie, I always look forward to watching them, to see where they take this particular journey. And I know a lot of people are starting to get, superhero fatigue, but I feel like this one being more so the anti-hero group of all of the Marvel characters that we come across. It's really interesting to see them come together and try to work together in a way. When I first, because I went to watch this at the cinema, and I love watching the Marvel films on the big screen, because of all of the flashy work that they do in there with all the different heroics and action. And so watching Thunderbolts, considering the main plot line of this movie was about Yelena and a lot of the mental struggles she was going through after the loss of her sister, I was just taken aback by Florence Pugh's performance. She was absolutely wonderful, and she really sold it to the audience, or at least to me, that she was really struggling and she was having a hard time grieving the loss of a loved one. So it also goes to show how much darkness she was also in, and the fact that this movie portrays that in a more sort of like a that the darkness is your enemy kind of a thing, and that really had like it really hit me really hard. Very relatable, with a lot of like the whole depression, anxiety kind of topic at hand, and grieving is also a difficult one to get through. So this film, it had its lighthearted moments of specific humorous scenes, like comedic moments to break up the tension, but most of this movie was basically Yelena trying to process everything, and just going through the motions. It was honestly, I think there were like multiple points where I cried. I cried for Yelena, I really did, and I also cried because of some of the struggles that I've been through. Because I was just sitting there thinking, yes, I understand. I understand completely. So the Thunderbolts is up there for me in my number 4 spot, and I really enjoyed it purely for that fact, just for that overall mental health topic that they touched on. Everyone else did a great performance as well. They all did a great job. It was nice to see Bucky back again, and of course Alexei. He's always fun, but it was also nice to see Alexei just trying to express that he knows he hasn't been the greatest dad to Yelena or to the family, but he's also struggling and he's trying his best as well, which also kind of hit me too. So that was really nice to see. And then, seeing John Walker was like, even though I knew he was going to be there, it was still a bit of a surprise on how long he was going to be there for. He was there for the whole movie. Yeah, it was a really fascinating film, and it really tugged on the heartstrings for me. So I'm super glad that I was able to watch this film when it released at the cinema. So yeah, Thunderbolts, Asterix, which we all know now is the new Avengers. So I look forward to seeing where they go with the way that it sort of ended, and the cliffhanger and the post-credit scenes and all that sort of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to where they go and what they're going to do with the new Avengers. I guess we'll find out in the future, especially with the whole cast Avengers movie that's coming, like Doomsday and all that. So that's going to be really cool to see. But yeah, Thunderbolts is my number 4. Jumping into my number 3, and a lot of you are going to be not so surprised about my number 3. And that is for the movie Elio. Yes, the Disney Pixar animated film. And it's about space. But more specifically, it's about a kid who's trying to find himself and trying to find where he belongs. And that's also very relatable, right? That's also very relatable. I'm sad that I didn't get to watch this movie at the cinema on the big screen, because honestly, the visual aspect of the film, it was so colorful. The fact that it was set in space was really cool. So I'm kind of sad that I didn't get a chance to watch it at the cinema itself, because it would have looked really, really nice. But I still watched it at home and I loved it to bits. And yeah, I got emotional watching this movie. there were some tears because it's one of those things about a kid that just wants to find, like I said, he wants to find where he belongs, but also the fact that he has a hard time making friends. And I can totally understand that. Like, it is very, very relatable in that respect. Even as an adult, even especially as an adult, it is very difficult to make friends. So the fact that he was able to find a friend in an alien in outer space was really cute, but also quite emotional. So I really enjoyed watching this film. Definitely worth checking out. I love Brad Garrett. He plays Lord Grygon and absolutely kills it. I love listening to Brad Garrett's voice in any animated movie. Just that deep booming voice, right? And the fact that he can do, because of that voice, he can do evil characters quite well. But also he does some good characters too that aren't always so, shifty and evil. But yeah, Brad Garrett's an amazing actor. I've loved him from the days of Everybody Loves Raymond, and I've never looked back. But yeah, no. Elio, if you haven't watched Elio and you're somewhat of a fan of animated movies, even if it isn't Disney Pixar, I would still recommend watching Elio. It's such a wonderful watch. And yeah, absolutely worth watching with family. Your kids will love it just because of how colorful it is. And they might actually, as a whole family, you might actually get something out of it. There's a message in there for everyone. And it's really, really enjoyable. All right, we're jumping into my number 2, where we're getting through this list pretty quickly. But that's okay. I'm totally cool with this. My number 2 is for a movie that I've been highly anticipating for a little while, but also a little bit cautious of, I suppose. I wasn't sure how well this was going to hit, but I know that a lot of people really enjoyed it, and this is F1 the movie. So I'm not like a crazy Formula One fan. However, I have somewhat been keeping up with some of the races that have been happening around the world. I usually watch recaps of the Formula One Grand Prix so that I can keep up with what's been happening. But also the fact that I used to work at the Melbourne Grand Prix, the F1 Grand Prix, whenever they were happening, and I worked there for, over 10 years. And I think that's where my fascination with the Formula One sort of began. From there, obviously, Netflix started creating the TV series that they have, Drive to Survive. And that gave me more of an insight into the teams and the drivers that I was seeing on a daily basis during that event. And so it was really nice to get an insight into that sort of stuff. And then turn around and we find out there's a movie about it, but it's mostly about a fictional team, not necessarily a real one. Now, I've heard and read reviews about this movie. A lot of people, especially Formula One fans, they don't really like the fact that they used a fictional team within the real world's sort of listing of teams. However, I still feel like it kind of worked, even though it did feel a bit jarring seeing these drivers of real F1 teams and then just having this made up team just slotted in, right? The one thing that I will give kudos to for this movie is I can't imagine the logistical process for the production team they would have had to go through to plan out, to create this movie, and the fact that they did it around these specific Grand Prix that are depicted in the film is insane. it just blew my mind that's what they ended up doing. They were actually filming during each of those Grand Prix. Nuts. That would have been a logistical nightmare, I feel like, trying to get everything done at precise moments, getting everything filmed. The other thing that also, like, not to mention the fact, because the Formula One itself, they have their own schedule that they have to meet and make sure that the races are done, and they have to do it like very strategically. They have to make sure that it's, the race is done before they can do their filming. And it just, that's the thing about these style of movies, these racing movies, and just any movies that do this sort of like real, sort of a heightened dramatized version of real life. I ended up buying I hadn't seen this in the cinema. I actually had to I ended up buying the 4K Blu-ray so that I can watch it at home. And I'm glad I did, because there was a lot of special features that I also ended up watching that I'm really grateful to have seen, because this is how I learnt that they actually, because how else are they going to get those real life Formula One drivers into the movie, right? Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, like, how on earth would you get them in the movie if you're not doing it at the Grand Prix time? And so that was really awesome to see. But the main sort of story surrounding the Formula One, where Brad Pitt's character, by the name of Sonny Hayes, who is a race car driver of any kind of race, doesn't matter whether it's Formula One or if it's, Daytona or whatever. He's been doing it all ever since, and he just does it for the love of driving and racing. But then he's asked by a friend, Ruben, played by Javier Bardem, who also plays that role very well, and ends up recruiting him to be on a Formula One team with a youngster by the name of Joshua Pierce, played by Damson Idris. Now, this trio here already just put together, and it was just great chemistry, really good. So Sonny and Joshua were having like these disagreements, a lot of disagreements. Joshua was always like, "Hey, I am the youngster here. I should be up there, in the Formula One seats, and I'm the one who wants to win." But then Sonny has all this, life experience, racing experience under his belt, and he's trying to help Joshua out. But at the same time, Sonny also likes to win too, but he has his strategies in winning. So it was a really awesome, like, watch of this movie. Some of the scenes, and I won't spoil when it happens or how it happens, but some of the crash scenes that happen, because obviously in Formula One, there's gonna be accidents, there's gonna be crash scenes regardless. It's like, it is a very dangerous sport, so I cannot imagine there not being any kind of crash outs with cars. So the fact that they've simulated some of a couple of different crash scenes in the movie, and the way they filmed it as well was, my gosh, like, I love the film industry. You have no idea. And just watching all of that had me just awe-inspired, and seeing how it was all filmed, the way that they had it all rigged up, and the way they made it look so realistic, and also very concerning because real fire was involved. It was awesome to watch the Formula One movie. I really enjoyed it. It's why it's up at my number 2. And it could have been my number 1, but my number 1 just went that little bit further to hit me a little harder in the heart. And I'm all about narratives and stories, especially when it comes to games, and the same rings true when it comes to films. And if a movie can get me feeling emotional, but also do it really well by telling an amazing story, then yeah, it's definitely going to be up there for me. So my number one movie, before I actually, you know what? Let's rewind a little bit. Before I jump into my number one movie, I want to give some shout outs to a few, in the honorable mentions fashion. And I want to talk about some of these movies that were also quite highly regarded by me, but also by a lot of other people as well. And they just missed the cut in my top 5, to be honest. I'm going to give you these honorable mentions in no particular order. They're not in any particular order after my number 5. They're just listed. Let me start off with Better Man. Better Man is the heightened... it is the mockumentary of Robbie Williams' life and career. And to be honest, I wasn't sure that I was that interested in learning about his life, but I ended up watching this movie on the plane ride from the US. I was coming home from my trip to the US, and on the flight, usually when I'm flying long distances, I like to watch movies, especially because a lot of the newer movies within the last year are generally, available to watch on the in-flight entertainment. So when I saw that Better Man was on there, I thought this is a great time for me to watch it. I'm not necessarily paying for a subscription service to watch this or anything like that. It's free for me right now. I'm gonna watch it. And so I did. And you know what? It was a really fascinating way to tell a story about a real life artist. Robbie Williams played himself. But in the role of this, like the way that they decided to make Robbie Williams look like a monkey, I don't know what that creative process, like who came up with the idea, whether it was Robbie, whether it was someone else on the writing team, it was a little jarring to just see the fact that it was a monkey within these group of humans. So, but it was an anthropomorphic monkey, and yeah, it was just really weird seeing that, right? But it worked for the film itself, to show that he is a bit of, he is a bit of a troublemaker. And when he was growing up, he had a lot of things happening in his life. Like the moment he was in a boy band, he started off in a boy band. He didn't want to just be there. He wanted to write his own lyrics. But the fame also got to him. And, as a lot of artists have done, drugs, alcohol can ruin lives. And there was a lot of, but that not only that, Robbie had a lot of his own inner demons that he had to try and push through. And during his career, it was a struggle from what I could see. I knew that he had a lot of stuff going on in his life. Like obviously it pops up on the news. But I didn't realize to what extent. And it was just really sort of eye-opening to see this particular mockumentary and have Robbie just show the audience in a very vulnerable way what his life was like going through the motions, and especially going through his music career. So I'm really grateful to this film, and I really appreciate it. it's definitely worth checking out if you can find a way to watch it. At the moment, it looks like it's on Prime Video, so if you have access, go for it. If you love music, if you enjoy watching biopics, this is definitely up there as one of the good ones. So I would definitely recommend checking it out. The next film I want to give a shout out to is for a very, very old superhero movie that I only just watched this year, and that is Superman. Yes, the 1978 Superman is up in my honorable mentions. I really enjoyed watching this movie. Now, granted, I did watch this after watching this year's Superman, which is what's his name again? Hold on. David Corenswet. The David Corenswet movie that came out this year, the James Gunn Superman that restarted the DCU. After once I watched this year's movie, I then wanted to just learn a little bit more sort of lore and how it all came to be from the first Superman movie, which was the one with Christopher Reeves. And you know what? I don't know why I hadn't watched this movie before, like a while ago. I should, considering the amount of, superhero movies I've been watching. Granted, I will say, I think maybe the main reason why I haven't touched Superman is mostly because of the fact that I'm not a big DC fan. I've tried watching some of the DC films. I've seen a few of them in my time. Haven't really jived with them, unfortunately. Like even as recent as the Suicide Squad, so the new The Suicide Squad, I wasn't a fan of that, to be honest. Even though I went and watched it in the cinema, I think the main reason, the main pull for me was mostly just the lineup of cast that was in it, and I wanted to see how they portrayed those characters. So that is why I ended up jumping in and watching The Suicide Squad. Wasn't a huge fan of it though, I will say. Just gonna put that out there. However, the new Superman movie was amazing. It was really great. But the one that is in my honorable mentions is the 1978 one with Christopher Reeves. It was also my first time watching this film. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yes, it's very dated with the special effects and all that sort of stuff, but I honestly didn't care. This was my popcorn movie and I had fun. I enjoyed it. I'm slowly starting to understand the love of Superman in the DC universe, and he's such a beloved character. I really just, I think I can't get enough of Christopher Reeves in the role of Superman, and he does such a great job in this film. And honestly, back in the day, he was quite the looker. I'm gonna, just let me admit that. Quite the looker. And I think I like him more in the Superman look than in his Clark Kent look. Because his Clark Kent look just, especially the way that, I know that he's just trying to disguise himself so that no one knows that he's Superman. But at the same time, it's one of those things where he sort of carries himself in such a way that makes you think, wow, he's a very nerdy man. He's just like, it's the thick glasses, the little bit of a hunch over in the shoulders, the way that he speaks, and behaves was just it's so funny. But that makes the fact that Christopher Reeves was able to do that just goes to show how talented this man is, because the moment he takes off his glasses from being Clark Kent to Superman, All of a sudden he's up, standing straight, shoulders back, looking very dominant and strong. And yeah, honestly, 1978 Superman, absolutely awesome, really good. Highly recommend if you haven't watched it. But I feel like everybody else on this world, or anyone who's watching this or listening to this podcast right now, has probably seen this a long time ago, and I'm the only one who has missed out, and I'm just coming out from under my rock to watch this movie. But I am actually pretty glad to have seen it. The one thing that I will say that I wasn't a big fan of was the Lois Lane character in this movie. She's so whiny. She's all about she wants the story. She wants to get the story because she's the best at her writing in the journalism in the newspaper and all that. But then she gets so caught up, she gets swept away by Superman that she ends up falling head over heels in love with Superman. But then every time Superman ends up disguising himself back into Clark Kent and trying to flirt, I suppose, with Lois, it never worked because the moment she laid eyes on Superman, it was over. And I don't really like those style of characters a lot of the times because they don't really give that other person a chance. And it's like she's hyper focused on Superman so much in the movie that it kind of I can see why she ended up being the damsel in distress every freaking second. But I just wasn't a huge fan of that character. I don't know whether she's supposed to be likable or not. Margot Kidder, she's very pretty. She's a very pretty lady. But yeah, that Lois Lane character. I don't know if it was the way she was written and especially of the time. It just, wasn't great. But Superman was amazing. But yeah, that's another honorable mention. And then I'll give you one more honorable mention here before I jump into my number one. And this is probably going to be really strange for a lot of you. Just because, I don't know, I'm not really a religious person, but I watched Conclave. Now, this movie has no action whatsoever in the film. It's literally just talk. There's a lot of talking involved in this, but there's also a lot of drama. There is so much drama and conspiracy. And it is pretty much a movie in a more heightened reality on the way that a new pope is selected. And it's just really fascinating for me. I really was so intrigued and so enthralled by the story. And I ended up, did I end up seeing this in the cinema? I'm not quite sure. No, because this actually came out last year, not this year. So yeah, this year. You know what I did? I ended up renting it on Prime Video. That's how I watched it for the first time. Because I thought, I think this is going to be a very good movie. And I think around the time that I watched it, it might have been Oscar season, so award season. And then when I found out that Conclave won quite a lot of awards, I thought, you know what? I think this is probably, a good time for me to watch the movie and see how good it is in my own eyes. So I ended up just renting it on Prime Video just to see if I would enjoy it. And I am so glad I did. It's really, really good. Once I finished watching it and it was available on Blu-ray, I ended up buying the Blu-ray. I just needed to have it in my physical collection. It is a great film, and the story was told very well. And even though there was no action at all throughout this whole movie, the drama kept you at the edge of your seat. You really wanted to know what was going on. There was a lot of secrets. There was a lot of, just a lot of gossip and just drama just kept building and built. There was so much intensity in these scenes of the movie. It just kept me wanting to learn more and more. And that's why for me, this movie has a runtime of 2 hours. It honestly didn't really feel like 2 hours to me. So it was done very well. And I really had just, yeah, it was just very interesting to watch it all sort of play out. Ralph Fiennes in the role of Lawrence, absolutely wonderful. Kudos to Ralph Fiennes. He did a great job in that role. So good. Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, they were also amazing in their roles, and especially their particular characters having their own dramas was really like, I wouldn't say it was funny, but it was just really cool to see how it all kind of played out and how their secrets ended up coming out, and then a way for them to be like, oh, I need to fix this. So they had to try and figure out how to, fix it before it got out, before all the other popes heard about it, and then so that they can keep their votes, because a lot of the votes were coming in for them, for their characters. So yeah, it was really cool. I definitely really enjoyed watching Conclave, and I definitely would highly recommend watching it. It is still available on Prime Video if you want to go see it. Yeah, Conclave. Fascinating film. All right, and now we're going to jump into my number one. Now, my number one is an animated movie. Who knew that? Of course, everybody did. Because I love my animated movies. It's not a Disney film though. I will say this. It's not a Disney film. This is, I believe, a DreamWorks film. So I do like my DreamWorks animations. The Wild Robot is my number one. And let me tell you why. It is the most wholesomest movie I have ever seen. It just gave me so much of the warm and fuzzies when I was watching this movie. And I don't think... I kind of wish that I had experienced this movie at the cinema, on the big screen. I didn't get a chance to, unfortunately, at the time that it was running. But I still made it a point to myself that I would go out of my way to watch it, because this movie also won some awards, and I can definitely see why. The animation style itself is beautiful, and it's almost kind of hand-drawn-ish in the way that it's got that kind of hand-drawn sort of colored in texture, so it looks really nice in that sense. I think the story is what kept me going. And let me tell you, the robot's name is Roz. And Roz is an AI robot who is technically actually built for companies and industries in more of the urban cities. However, unfortunately, while Roz was getting shipped somewhere, she ended up something happened at sea, and she gets shipwrecked on an uninhabited island. And this island is just full of animals, like just fauna everywhere. And the thing is, Roz has to adapt to the environment that she's in now. But when she first gets booted up, she's trying to do what she was programmed to do originally, but when she comes across these animals. But she couldn't understand why these animals were either being frightened or they were being violent against her. And the fact that she was trying to run away or run towards them. And so she had to really figure things out. And then she ends at some point in the movie, and I won't tell you how, she ends up adopting an orphaned baby goose by the name of I think it's Brightbill. Yes, by the name of Brightbill. Brightbill is adorable, and Brightbill, like the thing with ducks, with most birds, I suppose, is it has that or maybe it's just with animals in general, like the first face it sees will imprint onto the baby brain saying, that is my mum, that is my mother. And so in this instance, Brightbill hatches from his egg and sees Roz's face for the first time. And so Brightbill thinks, hey, this is my mum. And so, yeah, ends up growing up learning to do a lot of robot-y things. Not necessarily duck things. But Roz then has to learn how to be a mum, and then learns how to give Brightbill what he needs to grow up as a goose. And it's absolutely a wonderful movie. We have another character by the name of Fink, who is a fox. And yes, it is voiced by Pedro Pascal. But he does a very good job. And Fink is essentially, as the character suggests, it's a fox. Foxes are very cunning. They tell lies to get what they want. And that's how Fink is also depicted in this movie. But it then gets to a point where Fink just wants to be part of a family because he's never known what that is like, and ends up being part of the Roz and Brightbill family. And so they're kind of together, and Fink sort of becomes an adopted brother to Brightbill in a way, even though originally when we start off in the movie, he was more about eating the goose rather than being its sibling. So the way that this whole all these characters have their own story arcs, and the way that this story is just told is just so good. The music is also amazing. I really loved it. I don't have any negatives for this film, The Wild Robot. Oh, by the way, Roz is voiced by Lupita Nyong'o. She does an absolutely stunning job in the voicing of this character. It's so good. I can't recommend it enough. It's very wholesome. I would highly recommend watching it with your family, and just have warm hugs with them when you're watching this movie, because it's just wonderful. It's just beautiful. I don't know what else to say about The Wild Robot. It is just really good. I would definitely recommend you check it out. And that is my number one, and that is my top 5 favorite, my top 5, I suppose they are my top 5 favorite movies of 2025, but it's also the top 5 movies that I have watched this year. And yeah, all very good movies. I've been keeping a Letterboxd profile to just remind myself of all the movies that I have watched throughout the year, because a lot of the times I do not remember what I watched a week ago. So I thought this would be a great way to keep a list of movies that I have been watching throughout the year. And I think I started it last year, but I wasn't really using it very much. But then once 2025 rolled around, I thought, you know what? No, I'm going to make it a point that every time I watch a film, I am going to make sure I write a review about it. That way I know I watched it during that time of year. So it's been really nice. I will have a link to my Letterboxd profile if you would like to check it out for yourself in the description of this podcast. So if you would like to go and follow along with my film watching journey, you are more than welcome to. I endeavor to at least watch one movie a month if I can find the time. But by the looks of things, to be honest, if I just head over to my profile, I honestly have been watching maybe at least a minimum of like 2 or 3 movies a month this year, which kind of boggles my mind a little bit because I thought I wouldn't be watching as many movies. I did sort of, make it a point for myself that I would at least watch one movie a month. But then once I started actually, jotting down all of the movies that I've been watching into my Letterboxd account, it just kept on flowing and I just watched more and more movies, and I'm glad that I've been watching a lot more films. So yeah, I'll have a link to my profile in the description for you all in the show notes. And I just want to also just round off this episode with a big thank you to everybody who has been listening to my podcast. This year, previous years, I really do appreciate it. It's been a really great experience to do this podcast, even if it is once a month. It's been really fun to just chat about random things. And I hope you've also been enjoying the podcast itself as well. So a huge thank you to everybody who has been listening. Big props to those of you who have also rated and reviewed the podcast. It's very much appreciated. And I hope you've enjoyed. I hope I gave you some form of entertainment or, some way of learning about me and my likes and my personalities and all that sort of thing, and just the things that I think about in general, which is what this podcast is literally all about. It's just me thinking about certain topics on my mind, and I just like, hey, I want to talk about that this month. So I hope you've been enjoying that as well. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have had, depending on the time you're listening to this, a wonderful Christmas and a happy new year. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the Many Thoughts I Have podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a 5-star review or rating on your podcast service of choice. To keep up with me, head on over to foolishfuji.com for all of my socials, content, and koala merch. Links will be in the show notes. That's it from me. Remember to look after yourself and your mental health, and happy thinking, friends.